of a Tudor revival element here that we're hoping to exploit to better suit the main house. And we're going to introduce materials like the Ludovici roof tiles that currently exist on the main house, lead-coated copper for parts of the roofing, painted wood, double hung and casement windows that are suitable for the house as well. And then a cement stucco will match the color and the finish for that as well. And again, the biggest impact to the neighborhood is outside the house is exterior treatment. And we hope to better accommodate what is there. There are some interior moves that we've made or that we're proposing, but they don't, as I mentioned before, they don't change the existing footprint of the structure. Right now, it's an existing non-conforming structure in that it's close to a rear setback, or actually it's a front yard because it's on a corner. And so without having to create any other additional structure on the property, we were able to accommodate the programmatic requirements that the client needs or desires. I think if any board members might have any questions, that's okay.
Have any questions or comments from the commissioners?
I have just a question. You're not intending to do anything with the second floor?
There is no second floor. It's the center hall or the center space is going to be a cathedral ceilinged space. The flanking wings on either side of that main space currently have a flat roof, and we're going to introduce a pitched roof which sheds water better. It's been a problem for them because of the trees surrounding the area, et cetera. And again, the character of the cross gable with the pitched roofs better suits the main house on the property and the neighborhood as well.
Anyone else?
I would just comment that I agree that the renovation is going to complement the main house much better. It's much more in keeping with the character of the main structure. So.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Very nicely done.
Thank you.
The side that's going to be all glass, the exterior.
Yes,
That's facing where approximately?
that's facing the main house. So, sorry. Well, there's two sides that have significant glass.
It's on your HPC 2 at the top right.
Right, drawing number 2, I guess.
Yes.
Elevation number 2. So that is actually the view. If you look at elevation number 1 to the left of that, you see a timber frame. This is, if you were to cut through that timber frame porch, that would be the glass set behind the freestanding timber frame structure. So there's a canopy. I'm sorry, that's proposed.
That's the proposed.
Yeah, because again, the existing house has about a 4 pitch. It's very, very shallow. And we're trying to bring some light and air to the centerpiece of the structure.
And you mentioned this Ludovici, is that the
Yes,
tile?
I have a catalog with me of the tile. They're a fired clay product, and they come in various shapes, colors, and sizes. And it's our intention to review the existing roofing on the main house to match that.
So that's to be determined, I guess?
It's to be determined in a more finite way.
Excuse me, you said you were going to redo the whole house then?
No, the main house stays as is.
Okay.
It's been restored and
Okay.
it's in good shape. The intent is really limited to the pool house
Okay.
alone.
All right.
Okay.
I mean,
Any other questions or comments? Then we'll open the meeting floor to the public. Do we have anyone in the audience here for the open public meeting portion of it? No? Thank you. Having no more questions, we have, let's just talk about the condition. How will we follow up with that? Would that be through Barton Ross? The tiles and,
Yeah, if you want to send the roof spec and the condition, we think that'd be appropriate.
I would also volunteer, I'd provide a spec for the roof, the windows, the cladding, all the materials that we hope to use. That's all right. Okay.
so with those conditions, we've got those, the conditions of the tiles, windows, roof. What else? I'm sorry.
The cladding, the
Cladding.
stucco finish. Yeah.
So with those conditions, do I hear a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
Perfect. Crystal, roll, please.
Mrs. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Frankel,
Yes.
Mrs. Gaylord,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Glatt,
Yes.
and Mrs. Wenga.
Yes.
Terrific.
Very good. Thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Now we will move on to our second application, let me make sure I got it. 550, 1 Menacing Road, block number 3104, lot number 15. The contributing property in the Short Hills District. Jordan, is it Bettman?
Bettman.
Is the applicant, and this is a regulatory application for the proposed garage and mudroom addition to the house.
Right.
So can we have the applicants and the professionals sworn in?
You swear to tell the truth, but the truth.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
It's nice to meet you all in person. I'm Jordan Bettman. I'm the owner of 1 Minnesink Road. I have John James representing me today to talk about a reconstruction of the garage project. So my wife and I we've been living here for about 3 years now, and we were hoping to do a project in which we solved for 3 things. One is today we don't have functioning garages. So literally the width of the garage doors for our house don't fit our cars. So we have to park in the driveway, which has all kinds of implications, both weather and crime and things of that nature. 2, when we moved to this town 3 years ago, we had 2 children, and now we have 3. And I'm sure if you guys have kids, the fact that 2 have normal sized bedrooms and 1 does not is going to cause a problem in the future. And the third thing is, if you kind of look at the house from the side, it's not very symmetrical today. So one side is much higher and then it kind of drops down. And so what we're hoping to accomplish today is actually make the house nicer, make it actually look even across the board, and have this new piece of the house be identical to what already exists. So with that, I would turn it over to Mr. James.
Thank you.
I'm really going to work from the exhibits that I submitted already. I did bring the boards. If we want to refer to something, I can bring that over, but that's really exactly the same as what has already been submitted. See. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Thank you.
So the Bettman residence is located at 1 Minnesink Road, and it is a corner lot. And Minnesink is here with the front of the house and the main entry, and the corner is also facing on Highland Avenue. So it's very exposed, but it has a lot of nice and mature landscaping there. It's a designated property, Hartshorn House number 70 in the Short Hills Park Historic District. It's listed as a neo-federal revival style. It was built circa 1922 on the historic register, but I think the township has it slightly earlier in their records. Jordan and I presented to this board in 2021 and received your permission for a pool house and a pool on the property. I showed you the original survey of the property by Casey and Keller before any work was done. And then this is the survey that includes the pool and the pool house in the back corner that was approved back in 2021. And you can see The toned in area here shows where we're proposing to do the new additions on the back of the property, at the very back of the house. So we're here tonight to ask for your approval to rebuild the existing garage and the mudroom at the back of the house. The existing garage is really too small for their cars, as Jordan said. The doors are right at the edge. You can't pull a car in and open your door. It's really a substandard garage for Short Hills area or for a property of this size. So the cars don't fit. It also has a small mudroom, and it has a staircase that goes right down from the mudroom, and the last tread is the door. So if you go down to the bottom tread, you can't get into the garage without having any landing. So it's a non-conforming, totally code deficient kind of garage and mudroom area. The rest of the house is gorgeous and will remain untouched. But these are the two areas that are really their concern. So our addition includes a new 3-car garage with a basement space underneath. It has 2 bedrooms on the second floor, and it has a loft play area in the attic. And so why don't I go through the drawings and I can show you how it conceived. So on the site plan here, you can see this is the main house, the existing house. The main rooms are up front, kitchen, breakfast areas here kind of in the middle, and this is the garage at the very back. On the original Casey and Keller survey, it calls it a 3-car garage. It's really a 2-car garage. It's really a 1.5-car garage. It's, masquerading as a 2-car garage. It's what I call a Maplewood garage. It's like 18 by 18. Pull your cars in, but don't open your doors. So you can see that what we're trying to do is wrap around that. So it's a long L here, or kind of almost like a T. And we're proposing to put a footprint that kind of mirrors part of the footprint of the front of the house in a much smaller version. So that when you look at it from the side of the house, you'll see the bay window on the pool, and on the entry side from the driveway, that it mirrors. So if we look at this is the main house here.
For 1 second. I didn't ask if there's anyone in the audience for this application, because we can turn this around and.
Anybody?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I was a little late there. Okay.
So you can see here where we were
Be the
taking
first time.
conceptually as the block of the front of the house as the block of the garage here. And then we're adding to that in the mudroom area here with the dormer up there. But the main part of the house and this roof continues all the way across to the smaller garage area. So that's the compositional idea really for the whole project. And this is a perspective taken from Highland Avenue at the entry to the driveway. And what we did is we showed you in the exhibits another photograph without, and then we graphically superimposed this exactly to scale on top of that. So this is exactly what it will look like from the driveway on Highland Place. If we go through the drawings here, see, so the garage is going to be here at the back. The doors for the garage used to face towards the very rear corner of the property, and you had to drive all the way around the house and curl in there. At this point, in order to have a code compliant, we're going to face the 3 garage doors towards the side neighbor. And we're going to enlarge the driveway there with a retaining wall here. And then we're going to build bedrooms above that so that it has a smaller profile towards the front. There's not enough room to kind of add 3 cars this way. And if we did that, we'd have to go for a variance in terms of garage doors facing the front yard. So this way conceals the garage doors, reduces the amount of pavement, and has less impact, both historically to the house and also to the neighbors. We're not anticipating that any of the work we're doing here will require variance. We're way under on building coverage, we're way under on lot coverage, we're way under on floor area ratio. We could build to a height of 35 feet, but we're building to a height of 32 feet, with slightly less than the main ridge of the current house. So nothing about this proposal should require variance of any kind. So you can see at the basement plan, there's an existing basement under the front of the house. There's a crawl space in the middle, And we're gonna put a basement under the basement here. It'll be an unfinished basement for now, underneath the new garage. And it'll be, this back stair will continue down to the basement. On the first floor, you can see we're maintaining all the front of the house all the way through. This wall here is the wall that currently separates the kitchen from the current mudroom and garage. What we're doing is expanding the mudroom slightly so that instead of the staircase going here and hitting the front door, we can turn the staircase sideways. This garage is about a half a story, it's really about 7 or 8 steps below the main first floor, and we're keeping the existing on-grade conditions, so there's not a change to the landscaping or the grading around the house. And so we have our 3-car garage stretched this way, with 3 bays that come out. We have the 2 windows here that match the windows in the living room there, and we have the bay that matches the bay over here where the sunroom and master suite is above. Then in the mudrooms here, where it currently is going into the kitchen, and we have a new back stair that will go down to the basement. We'll continue up to the second floor, and halfway down to the basement, you'll be able to enter into the garage between the 2 car bays. Up on the second floor, we continue this back stair hall up. We have a window facing the front street and another one facing the back. And then on this level, we have an entry and we have 2 separate bedroom suites, each with their own bath. And we're anticipating one of these is like a guest suite for grandparents and the other is one of the children. And then up in the attic, you can see the main part of the house. And then the intermediate portion of the house here is at a different floor level. It's about 4 steps down from the main house, and that connects back into here, so we're slightly lower. But we're then building an attic up like the attic over here. This study that Jordan uses is one of his favorite rooms as well as the kids' favorite rooms in the house, and we're trying to create a new favorite room for the kids that will be over here as opposed to over here. And so that's the attic level, which is an open kind of loft play area for them. And this is going to be the same roof profile as the main house. It's going to have the same 2 dormers like are part of the front of the main house as well. Very low sloped roof. You can see the roof plan here. So the existing house and the connecting area totally remains, and this is the new roof area over the garage, the mud room there. We'll look at the elevations for the back of the house. You can see the 3 garage bays. The 2 bedrooms are here directly above that, and then up in the attic. And these are the 2 dormers that are mirroring those 2 dormers from the front of the house. Looks much better in 3D than it does in a 2D drawing. That's why I showed you, you would never draw a roof like this if we didn't have one on the front. We want to put some more peaks and things. And we're using stone from the existing house, brick from the existing house, and clapboard to match. We're going to be, we want to use the Da Vinci synthetic slate. I showed you photographs of that we used previously on the pool house. It turned out really well. We did a mixture of 6 or 8 different colors to match what was on the house, and it turned out quite well. So I also included a picture of that for you as well. Here you can see the height elevation for the house here, which is also the same view as the rendering. So you can see how when you draw it in elevation, this ridge is just slightly less than that. When you look at it in perspective, it's much smaller because it doesn't come out nearly as far on both sides of the house. And so this is the connecting roof in between, the gable there that matches here, windows coming down again, the mudrooms here, and this is the back entry. And you can see that in a perfectly true elevation. All these are mirrored. We're matching the 8/8 windows from the larger windows from the main portion of the house, and we're matching the 6/6 windows where they occur in the smaller portions of the house. And then on the facade that faces the garden, the existing house is here, and the new addition is here. This is the piece here that matches that piece without the chimney. And so this is the garage with the bay down below, like for bicycles. This is the bedroom with the bay window. And this is that attic space with the dormer out the side. And this is the extension of the back stair up so that you can get up to the attic level. We're maintaining the low copper roof that comes around and just extending that out slightly for the entry to the mudroom on the side. The existing platform height of that will remain the same. The change down to the grade remains the same. And the garage here fits kind of right over top of where the existing garage is. So I had a rendering here that shows the view from Highland Avenue, the entry of the driveway there. And then the other exhibits that I have that we sent were the windows. We're using simulated divided light windows. These are going to be Pella Architect series. We might also possibly consider Marvin Ultimate Double Hungs or Norwood that would match the Pella. These days, we usually have to check on 2 or 3 window suppliers that do the exact same type of window. This will match what's currently in the house and will be true to the character of the house itself. We also showed you just a different profile on the next one for like where the sunroom bay is. It has lower windows, which are more like 9/9. We're using carriage style garage doors. These will be all wood insulating glass. That's exhibit number 3 in the photographs there. We're going to be putting on Timberlane shutters. So the shutters for the new windows will match the shutters of the existing house and existing windows. They'll make it to match the profiles. Item number 5 shows the existing slate roof. You can see it's a multicolor slate roof. And item number 6 shows you the Da Vinci slate that we want to use laid right on top of that. So you can see that it's the same type of cleft material. It'll be spaced at varying widths, but it will have the same exposure as the existing roof. Right now, we're proposing to keep the existing roof all the way as far as it goes, and we're going to try to save a portion of the garage to put on the areas that are just extended past the line where we're adding on to. And then the new roof here will be the Da Vinci slate. We had also asked in our letter of introduction to, with the application, of wanting to have the right to put Da Vinci slate if we needed to on the entire house. And so that was a question for you as well, separate from the drawings themselves that we're submitting. Item number 7, you see another Da Vinci slate with the existing slate just to show the matching and the colors that we can get. And this is against what is the new low area. So you can see interspersed old and new slates. And we're going to, again, take the coloration of the existing roof and go out and get bundles of each of the colors so that it will match as close as possible. But the beautiful thing about it is that we can space it. It has the same cleft edge, has the same thickness as the current slate on the house. Item number 8 shows you a view of the front of the house. What we're going to match, it shows you how those dormers look from up above. It's quite different in the view from above than it is from the ground. And then item number 9 shows you the house as it is today. And then you have the rendering to compare that with. And number 10 shows you the view of the current garage from the pool house. And that's where we're going to extend the roof over and do the new mudroom and garage addition.
Great, thank you.
Are there any questions?
First of all, if Barton, if you can share your report with the board, if that's okay?
Sure. So obviously, I understand the deficiencies in the current plan and garage size. So obviously, this new addition is much larger than the existing. I mean, this is going to bring the it up the full story and a half. I appreciate what Mr. James was saying, how the ridge of the addition is going to be slightly lower than the main house, which is a good feature. Obviously, all the details, the window muttons, the clapboards, the shutters, that'll all be to match. So the materials and the design, are very good. I think that they'll match well with the existing house. The rendering is very helpful from Highland Avenue to show you just how much of a difference this will make. But it'll obviously function much better having the 3-car garage on the side instead of having to do a total U into the yard. So I believe it will function much better, and the architecture does match the existing house. So it's kind of creating another bookend on the house, which is a good thing. The only thing I really had issue with was the synthetic slate, I guess, just because this commission, normally for contributing designated park showing houses especially, we've tried to get, real slate, or actually we've really tried to work with applicants to repair in kind slate. It can last 100 years, so, this is right at its 100-year existence. So, synthetic slate, I'll leave that up to the commissioners. We approved it before simply because it was an accessory structure for the pool house, which is fine. Or even an addition, but blending it all in with everything else. Mr. James made a compelling point about how it'll match and everything. And would you really know from Highland Avenue whether it's synthetic or real? I'll leave that up to commissioners. So, but that hasn't been our precedent before. So.
Thank you. So I will open it up to the commissioners. Any questions, comments?
What is the current life for the Da Vinci? What are they giving as a lifespan?
50 years, 75. We don't really know because it hadn't been on a house yet. So, yeah, my guess would be it's probably half of a slate roof. It could potentially last. I mean, it may last in the landfills much longer than that.
Yes.
I do think that it is a different product than what we've ever seen out before, because it does have varying thicknesses, it has varying widths. We can specify it to match the same specs that we would with slate, and you can see with the cleft edge and the proper spacing, you would, if we put it on there, you wouldn't know it. I understand what Barton's saying, but some of the realities these days, we are at 101 years now, and the roof is going to be an issue that's going to come up when we have to match it and blend against it. So that's usually one of the first discussions right after framing. So that's the reason we brought it up to the commission to talk about.
I'd just like to make a comment. I've been on this commission for a while, and I can remember so distinctly a applicant who came in to us asking it to do exactly the same thing. They were putting an addition on the house. The original slate roof on the house was problematic and needed repair, and they wanted to do the addition in a synthetic and then repair the house in a synthetic also. Probably the same thing they were using. I don't remember the specifics. And we turned them down. We said, now, obviously this was years ago and products have changed, but we were pretty specific about the fact that we wanted slate roofs to be there. We were not gonna give in on a slate roof. So, as I say, I don't remember these people's names, but it was a specific, ruling we had in, as far as our houses of historic interest. That that was one thing that we held firm on, that we just didn't.
So Karen, can I ask Barton as a professional question? In the last 10 years, have we ever allowed on a numbered house a synthetic roof, even on a new addition?
I mean, we've allowed it. We allowed it on the pool house.
No, but I mean on the actual structure.
I don't believe on the main roof of a designated house we have.
Okay.
Although products are always evolving, so this is what Mr. James is putting forth. So.
Do you mind if I ask a question? Is the product that close to an actual slate? Because I'm looking at like the purples and all that, and the natural slate, like that's a very attractive feature to have all the different shades of the thing in it. And it sort of looks okay to me, but I'm wondering from your perspective, is the product that good that it could really fool us? Yeah.
From the street, maybe it's not gonna look that different. It probably, maybe when the sun is shining right on it, it looks a little bit different. But if you held it, you'd know the difference. Obviously, it has a different feel. But, it's not adding, it's lighter, so it's not adding more weight to the roof or anything like that. We can match it as Mr. James showed, but I guess it's just a matter of principle at this point, so.
So does the manufacturer have any literature on how this weathers over time? Because this is obviously new, and you're saying you haven't really worked with it before. You've used it, so that's been out for maybe a year, if that.
I've used it on other properties that have been out for 5 years.
And, so I think the thing is, we know how slate weathers, we know how it's gonna look down the road. The question is, we don't know how this will look down the road. That's our hesitation for
No, I
doing
get
something like this, so. If there was some literature that could say, we've done the weathering studies in the lab and simulate 30 years, looks the same.
I can certainly go back to them and ask for that. That's not
I
a
mean,
problem.
we need something like that to consider it.
Anybody else have any?
And, just looking at like this photo you have here of the garage, I mean, the slate's a slate. I can see it's there. I mean, there's some weathering to it. Is it possible to take the existing slate and use that for the footprint of the addition?
I don't think so.
So there would have to be new slate brought in no matter
It would
what.
have to be new slate. At 100 years old, it's really,
All that.
I think so. I mean, I would expect to get maybe 25% of it. And those would be the new pieces that have been patched,
Right.
not the original slate. It's just very, very brittle at that age.
What is the cost differential? Because I mean, Da Vinci's not that cheap.
No, it's not that cheap. I would say the
Yeah.
cost differential between the Da Vinci and real slate's about 5 times. So we're talking on the magnitude of, if we were looking at the whole house with slate, we're talking on a magnitude of somewhere 125,000, 450. I mean, slate is crazy these
Yeah.
days. So I just, we're not going to be the first and only to come before the board. This is going to be, an ongoing conversation. And it's an ongoing conversation I've had with many clients over the past few years. And we found a material that if I went and held both of them on the back wall, I would bet that no one here could tell the difference. The real reason is that in what they're doing these days, as opposed to developing one thing that's totally uniform, the grays, there are 4 to 6 gradations of grays. They have much better technology for doing that and for doing all the colors. And they simulate the best of what we would do, which is a cleft as opposed to a sawn edge. So it looks hand chiseled. So they're able to really reproduce, the most expensive roof installation that we would do. It's not a imitation of a thin Pennsylvania slate with sawn edges,
Would it be helpful to actually see the product to compare it to what the slate looks like? So, because the picture is one thing, maybe seeing it would be different, but I understand the weathering issue also could be an issue.
If that's something that, that would be having you guys come back in again for.
Well, what is, could we ask for approval of the design so that we could go ahead with our construction drawings? And we would hold the slate issue in abeyance until we submit some further information for you to rule on.
I think that would be good, but I also want to make clear too that this would be setting precedents for now all the numbered homes. I do understand what you're saying. I don't, my research, there's not enough data, long-term data on some of these slate roofs. Also, it is, we need to think about sustainability and exactly what we're talking about is landfill. You know, what actually, and we're supposed to be stewards here of not only our community, but this particular house. So I want us all to consider that. I remember the application with the pool house, and I remember that we approved that it was a secondary structure, not the numbered house. And so we gave a little leeway with that. So I want the commissioners to remember that also. I think what we need to ask you is if we release the design, are you prepared to put real slate on the new addition? Because that then becomes
Well, we're prepared to come back and try to show you the other things for your decision, and then
Right.
we're gonna have to abide by what your decision is,
But if
either way.
Okay, so as long
mean,
as
do you-
we're in agreement.
I don't know what else we're gonna do.
Yeah, let's, you might get that.
No, I get it.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, we would-
certainly here, I mean, certainly the new addition and.
Well, if we have to go with existing slate, we're not taking on the roof of the house.
Right.
The roof of the house is going to stay
For a
totally
little
intact.
while
We're not
longer,
gonna
right.
touch it.
I understand.
Absolutely. So,
And please understand, for me, it's about setting precedents for all the numbered homes. And again, that's what this community has, are these beautiful numbered homes. And so we really need to think long and hard about this new product, but not only from a design standpoint, but also sustainability to our community and the future, right? So maybe we could talk more about that, or maybe Barton can run it through the subcommittee, the minor work committee. How do you see best working
It's
this?
just a conditional approval on that final product selection, and then hopefully you could approve the rest of the application so they can move forward.
Okay. So let's do that.
I just have one more comment.
sure.
So is there any way to sort of temper the dormer on this side? Because I do believe it does look way better in the renderings, but the dormer, I think there's a bathroom up there. I think one of the nice things about the main house is that, it kind of pulls it down. Like it has a very nice sweep at the bottom of the main house, kind of grounding it a little bit. And that dormer kind of sticks out, like it sort of brings that whole side of the house up higher than
It's a little bit right here.
yeah, but it kind of just pulls your eye up a little bit, whereas I think the
Well, we
nice
had
thing
it-
about the main house is that
We
it
had
kind
it
of
as
pulls
an
down.
individual dormer
Mhm,
with a small opening between it.
mhm.
That looked a little awkward.
Okay,
So we decided to shed it into here just because it worked much better than having, a line coming in here
Mhm.
and trying to see a very, very small opening through here. And then the roof back there with a cricket.
Mhm.
So it seemed that when you wanted to have something here, usually the traditional way of doing this was to attach it to the rest of the roof
Mhm.
so that it felt more continuous.
yeah.
And
There's,
we also pushed it back further up the roof
Mhm.
so that it would be much more minimal.
Mhm.
The issue is that this ceiling height here is for the second floor, and we're up here in the attic level, which is up here. And this dormer here is similar to what the dormers are here, but being on the side, it really needs to connect back in because it's a snow and rain and water problem in that gap.
yeah. There's something,
And I drew it that way first, it looked terrible in the rendering.
okay. Yeah, there's something about it that just draws
Right.
you up, and it almost makes that whole side look a little bigger, whereas the other side.
I
it's
think
just
that
a
when
little
you
bit more
walk around
dense.
and see it, it's gonna
Yeah.
be a minimal part up on top of the roof. Meaning, you see these dormers in the other 3D photographs up on the top of the roof, walking around the house from the ground level above the second floor. I mean, this is that 14-foot wide view between the trees right as you're on the street. And as you walk closer, it's gonna diminish every step you go. So by the time you're halfway there, you probably don't even see it.
What would happen if you put a bigger window up there? That window to me looks kind of small based on the size of the,
We could make it a slightly bigger window. Let me just check the elevation. I think it's the exact same size as the other. It could be a larger window. So we could make a larger window to match the other windows in the attic level.
Yeah, just,
That's something we could do. It would go, to about that size.
Let me clarify, what we're trying to do is trying to fill in that solid gap, is that what you're?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you put a
Is
bigger
that what
window
you're
in there, that
going
would fill in that solid gap.
Yeah, there's just something that, I mean, in the plan, it's really a lot. And then even in the rendering, it was the one thing that kind of
Yeah,
looked very much like an addition, like somebody needed to put in a bathroom and they were like, okay, we'll bump out the roof over here. It didn't
Yeah,
look
that's
my
feeling
guess,
was
and
when I looked at it, was that, well, just make that window a little bigger. Would
So we
fill in
could do
gap
that.
a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think we want to make it double. I mean, we could add a smaller high window here. But I think probably making that
Just
bigger would
wider,
make it,
yeah.
And
That's
it's
no
a
problem.
window to the bathroom, is that right? I'm trying to see what that's. for.
Yes.
Well, you just put a little cat baker in there or something.
Again, commissioners, let's remind ourselves, they are on a corner lot, so their house faces one, so this would have been a side yard for some. I agree with the bigger.
yeah, this is the side yard
Yeah.
view, not the front yard, not the main address.
Right, but
Right.
unfortunately for you, it also faces a very prominent road.
Yeah.
So we're trying to negotiate here what, to give it a little better look. And,
Right.
Yeah, is that doing it? The window, Elizabeth, you brought it up.
yeah, I mean, maybe it's hard to know, but it might help. Yeah, make it less.
I think the subcommittee needs to review it, so.
Okay,
Like, I actually don't mind the way it's designed now, but, kind of like it organically just kind of, you got multiple parts to the building and this is just one part, so maybe it doesn't all match because it all got added on at different times, kind of a thing. But I see what the commissioners are saying, so. I suggest Mr. James just try to come up with a slightly revised design and then he could submit it.
do the minor work review.
Correct.
I mean, the other thing we could do is we could move the window. Yeah. We were trying right now to keep it perfectly centered on the bay for the,
Okay. Any other
for the mudroom.
questions or comments from commissioners? So we have a couple of things, conditions. So let's try to run through those and make sure we've captured all of them. So one of them is, we're only going to vote on the application without the roof piece and without this new dormer window. And then that will be reviewed by the minor review committee once we've taken a look at that. And then was there, the windows. You weren't sure. You have the specs for Pella, but you said maybe,
I might use a Marvin Ultimate Double Hung, which would be the same quality level window. It's gonna really depend on what lead times are.
and that is something that we will, okay, and,
Or the Norwood, they're all good.
Yeah, all three.
I think whatever you guys decide, just send us.
We'll
just
let
so
you
we have
know
a
which
record
one
of
it
which
is,
one.
but it's going to be that same type of window by an equal manufacturer. It's not going to be a substitute inexpensive window.
okay, so all we need is the specs on that and confirmation.
Right, we gave you the Pella.
Yeah.
And if we decide to change to Marvin or Norwood, then we'll send that to you. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you. Is there anything else I'm missing or? No? Okay. And we know we have no one in the audience for this application. So, let's see. Do I hear a motion to approve this application with conditions?
Motion to approve with conditions.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Crystal?
Mrs. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Frankel,
Yes.
Mrs. Gaylor,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Glatt,
Yes.
Mrs. Weinberg.
Yes. One,
Thank you very much.
yeah, for the record, if you have any data on this, the length, the time and this particular tile, please get that to us too. from
Oh,
the
yes, no,
manufacturer.
exactly, yeah. I think what we'll probably do is get you a sample board and I'll get you whatever we can get from them on that. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Yeah, and we'll send you an update on the bathroom, right? Those are the two things we own.
Yes.
Great. And that's gonna go to the subcommittee.
It will.
Correct.
Thank you quick.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank
Good
you
luck
very
to
much.
Just on the sample board, can you make sure there's some greens in there, because the house has some pretty nice.
Yes, it does have some nice greens. They do make greens, yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next project.
In terms of ordering, like when we did the pool house, we just did a custom order and gave them the percentage and picked out of their, say, 30 colors.
Terrific. So now we're on to application number 549, 60 Lennon Street, block 307, lot number 17. It's a contributing property in the Wyoming Historic District. Little Club Tennis Center, LLC, is the applicant. I want to remind the commissioners, this is a conceptual application for major renovations of this property. Reminder is this application is asking the HPC to look at the ideas of a conceptual architecture. We need to refer to the design guidelines for the historic site, Barton Ross's investigation report, when giving guidance on this design. Okay? This application will not be voted on tonight. This is strictly conceptual. So with that said, if we could have council swear you in, professionals and anyone who will be speaking on behalf of this application.
Sure. Lisa Lamello from Murphy, Schiller & Wilkes. I'm the attorney for the applicant, so I don't need to be sworn, but Ms. Carolyn Young is the architect who is sworn.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
So please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As you've indicated, this is a concept review for the Wyoming Club, the Wyoming Tennis Club at 60 Linden Street. The eventual application will involve the structure, the clubhouse structure. At this time, we are submitted a structural engineering report and architectural concept drawings. We do have the report of Mr. Barton as well. You can see from the structural report, which Ms. Young will get into in her testimony, the structure is in a state of disrepair. In fact, at the end of the report, it suggests that people not go into the building for potential roof collapse. So the applicant will eventually request the approval to demolish the structure and then replace the structure with something that's more in conformance with both the bulk standards and the neighborhood. As I won't go on too long about that, as Ms. Young will provide that testimony. So with that said, I will call Ms. Young as our first witness.
Okay, hi. Carolyn Young, architect, just so you know. You have a package in front of you. This is all the same information. Nothing here is different, but I can pull things up as we need to look at them.
Is there an easel?
No, but that's okay. I can hold. I'm sure we won't be looking at the
Easel
same.
over here.
Other, oh,
Yeah. That's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at that, I was like, oh boy. That doesn't look structurally sound.
And could we also ask you, if you don't mind, what your qualifications for the record? Thank you. Again, if there's anyone here for this application, maybe we should put
Everybody
it,
is.
okay. So maybe if we put it on this side of the
Go that side.
room and kind of tipped a
Tip it
little
that
so we
way.
could both see it, and anyone can move up closer if they'd like, so they can see this too. Terrific. Everyone have their glasses?
Yes.
No, we can't see it, so
Oh.
yeah, maybe behind Maggie,
Yeah, there you
Bart, do you think? I don't need, I think.
I was just saying, if it's there, then
If it's a little
We can
further
see.
back, then maybe everybody can, there we
Then
go.
I can't reach it.
Professional grade.
Okay, oh, all right.
Okay,
And I believe you want the witness qualifications.
oh,
for-
please,
Yes.
please.
Carolyn Young, architect. My office is located in Morristown, 122 Washington Street. My educational background is Cornell University. I've been practicing, had my own practice since 1995, however many years that is, a lot. And I have testified before your board somewhat recently regarding 58 Linden Street,
Okay.
a year and a half or so ago.
Thank you.
But we would submit Ms. Young as an expert in the field of architecture.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
So this is a concept, but we're really happy to be here to talk about this property because, we know as a historic district, you're concerned about structures and the character and maintaining the character of the area. So what we submitted in our package were a few different things. The first thing in the package was a structural report done by KSI Engineering. That report was prepared for the applicant when they were in the process of purchasing the entire property. It was done in 21, I think, 2021. And if you go through the report, I don't know if, I don't want to spend too much time, too much detail, but as you go through each sort of category in the report, the roof framing, you see that it's framed with like 1x3s. Now we use like 2x12s. You see that the floor framing was 1x6s. Now we use 2x12s, 2x10s sometimes, depending on the spans. You see that the basement and the crawl space, that there are cracks that are significant and of structural concern. You see that the crawl space has various piers that do not have proper mortar in them anymore. They don't have footings under them. They're just sort of cobbled together. Generally, as is the observation, access to the crawl space is also very limited, as the report notes. The patio, existing patio, doesn't have a foundation that goes down to any frost line. There are photographs that illustrate that you actually can see the bottom of the patio being above grade. They give some summaries in their professional opinion. The entire roof should be completely removed and replaced. The difficulty to install new footings in the crawl space, underpinning existing piers with the tight constraints would require the removal of the first floor in order to work from above to get down to those footings. So there you're already taking the floor out of the existing building to get to the piers. To take the floor out of the building, you kind of have to take the walls down because the walls sit on top of the floor framing. So one thing leads to the next. And basically at the end of the report, they feel that it's that with the roof condition coupled with all these other foundation issues, et cetera, that total demolition and replacement is the most feasible option for the building. And they also feel that when you demolish the building, the patio is going to be even more compromised than it currently is. So it's likely that that should be demolished as well. It was interesting with this report, we submitted this material shortly before we got the report that was prepared for Barton's office, which again, I don't know how much you've had a chance to see or read, but it was very interesting history. Found it fascinating. Everyone here are tennis players, and I happen to be also. So it was interesting to read the history of tennis, the excitement of tennis coming to America, and then Tennis in America coming to Milburn, and, you know, all of the wonderfulness of this new game and these courts and the elegance of it. And I can just picture it all. So very exciting. The Wyoming Club was established. I think it moved from one location to this location. And then also the property acquisition portion of the history I found really interesting too, having worked next door with 58 Linden and learning why 58 Linden has a 60-foot wide lot when the rest of it is 50-foot wide, and the Wyoming Club lot is 190 feet wide instead of 200 feet wide. So it's all really fascinating. It does, of course, touch on the building as well in the report, but I don't feel that the building is the focus of the history of the tennis club. It's about the tennis. It's about the people that were involved. It's about all of the history and the relationship and the community, as the report says. They're not really sure when the clubhouse was built. They don't really have the date. I think it's a 1968 newspaper article that thinks that it was erected around 1925. And it refers also that the building was an early prefab structure. It was not a Sears Roebuck they have established, but there were many companies that did prefab structures. And it was intended at the time to serve only as on a temporary basis. So I found that very interesting in the report. Also, the building has been added on to, the report also includes how the building was added on to over the course of its history. So this part of Barton's report about the time and the prefab structure actually helps to clarify and make sense of some of the structural report done by KSI Engineering, because the place where the piers under the foundation, and there is lack of foundation, the structural report isn't even sure if it's masonry in some places. That's all underneath the original portion of the clubhouse building that's being referred to as the prefab structure in this report. So that begins to blend the reasons together if it was much more a building for a temporary basis. Obviously, it was constructed as a summertime building. It was a summertime game. It wasn't thought about being used on a year-round basis for heating or any other kind of inclement conditions. And then, of course, the building has been added on to, this report refers to in the 60s. And it seems evident just, again, from sort of the look and materials in the front shed section of the building and some of the other areas that it was probably in the 60s. And then there are a couple little flat roof area appenditures that might have even been done in the 70s or something. So we don't know much more than that. But so our goal, because of the structural report, is to remove the existing building. Also included in the package in the structural report, KSI has also included a whole series of photographs that they took showing the existing front of the building and its architectural appearance. And they show a series of photographs showing the condition where there is no extended footing underneath any foundation work underneath the terrace and patio. To a couple of photographs of that. They show, rotting wood and foundation cracks and so forth throughout this series of pictures in their package. And then some of the interior photographs with the bracing that's been added over the course of time to try to help prevent this roof from collapsing in on itself to shore it up, and some internal basement photographs showing the conditions of cracks and the crawl space photos with these sort of cobbled together types of piers that they have supporting the structure. So that's all illustrations of the structural conditions, and then we included also some photographs that our office has taken. Again, a front photograph illustrating the wavy nature of the ridge, which is indicative of the failing structure of the roof. The shed roof, which is also wavy and collapsing. A side elevation, which you see the building is clad with aluminum, I think it's aluminum or vinyl siding at this point, so there are no more original exterior materials. I don't, the historic report has a photograph, but it's unclear what the exterior materials originally were. And so we just have a few photographs that show you the various sides of it.
Was there a second floor to this?
No.
Any of it?
No, it was a one-story building. I believe the historic report confirmed that as well. There was never a second floor. So having said all that, what we would, so I can take this with me.
We made it very difficult.
Yeah, that's okay. I like puzzles. So having said all that, what we would like to consider doing is removing the existing building, which this is the survey done by Casey and Keller, and to construct a new building in its place. The new building would be smaller in footprint than the existing building. Since it would be new, we would also want to be more compliant with the side yard setback, which the current building is not. So we would be able to comply with that zoning requirement. We would also push the front of the building back so it would conform with the average front yard setback. That'll still need zoning relief because the official front yard setback, I believe, is 40 feet. But it would be better, and it would be in keeping with the streetscape of other homes on the street, which I think would be responsive to the historic character of the district. We would be creating an outdoor patio, which is what the building, what the site has now. Our patio might be a bit larger than the existing patio, but the building would be smaller. We're anticipating the building would be about 1,100 to 1,200 square feet. Patio might be about 800 square feet. We would try to create a nicer set of stairs that would go down to the tennis courts. Right now, it's kind of just a very steep little set of stairs and a little hazardous going down. And then the rest of the property would remain lawn as it is today. And we would also want to put a small shed on the tennis court level for like the roller and tennis related equipment that they would want to keep at courtside. Again, we haven't gotten into the development and the specifics of the materials and things like that. But in your package, we have included a floor plan of where we are currently thinking, like I just explained, a smaller building, about 1,100 to 1,200 square feet. It would be the essentials of a tennis clubhouse, 2 bathrooms, some storage area, some mechanical space, and a larger activity area with a little kitchenette, a little workroom. And the activity area would open on to the patio, the outdoor patio space. And again, there would be steps that would then take you down to the courts. I do think that a door facing Linden Street and having a front entrance addressing Linden Street is a desirable thing, because we are in a residential area and there is a cadence of front doors, and that's the way a residential street works. And then we would have a walkway similar to what's there now to the side of the building that would let people also just walk directly to the outdoor patio without going through the building and going down to the courts. So it could be a very circular sort of flow indoors and outdoors. We've looked at some initial ideas for elevations, and again, we're not here to really propose any materials or specifics like that today. Certainly want to hear any comments that you have and thoughts about that. But we've included a front elevation, conceptually with a front-facing gable, with, again, a front door with a little canopy roof over it, trying to be in keeping with the area and the neighborhood. We've included a side elevation that faces the courts, where there would be the walkway to the side of the building that would take you to the patio space, which would be partially covered with a roof so that there would be some shading and control of the elements. And a rear elevation where you see that covered outdoor space roof wrapping around the patio to the front, and a storage area that's would be to the back of the building that would again be for storage of tennis related supplies and equipment. So I can certainly speak more to comments and questions, but I think that sort of summarizes what we've been looking at and what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you. Certainly, Barton, can you kind of go through your report just a little bit for us? And
Well, sure. Ms. Young kind of summarized everything. So the property was purchased in 1922 for the Wyoming Club. Obviously, there was no building at that time. The 1928 atlas clearly shows the original gable roof structure, which is like the main room today. And the 1968 newspaper article claims it was erected around 1925, which kind of splits the difference between those two facts. So it seems very likely that the building, as the article states, way back in 1968, was one of the early prefab structures and was intended at the time to serve only on a temporary basis. So it doesn't match any of the Sears Roebuck catalog buildings. However, the railroad was very close by and obviously could have easily been dropped off via railroad and then erected on the site. And the lack of foundation and premium materials and structural elements kind of supports that fact. Now, it's also not well documented or mentioned in the 1980 National Register nomination either for the district. They really do not touch on the club at all, since it was kind of an anchor, resident tenant in the neighborhood. So, so that was interesting. And I guess at this point, the building is in poor shape. We know that from many people and many previous reports, the KSI report, everything. So I guess my hope on this was, since it's a 100-year-old building, that maybe, even if you want to save it, you're going to have to lift this thing up and do a new foundation and everything, even if you want to save it, and do a lot of work to it. The two additions on the front and the back are completely gone and really of no historic value. So those two additions, I don't think anybody's going to fight to save. I guess for the club, for continuity of the value of the structure. Even looking at Carolyn's sketch, my thought would be even if we could somehow pick up the 1925 portion, spin it around 90 degrees and make that the storage part, understanding it needs new foundation, new elements and everything, that might be some kind of a compromise for the board. If something is saved, there's some historical remnant, but at the same time, we all understand this is not a high-style building. And the architecture is just not there. It wasn't constructed to be as such in the district. This was just a club building that they erected 100 years ago, and probably if they were around now, would be surprised it's still standing. So.
Wait, money's worth on that prefab. Yeah.
So I guess that's where we're at, and this is a conceptual review. So obviously, any feedback from all the commissioners so that they can refine their design would be very helpful. So.
Terrific. So we'll start with any questions or comments on this. And again, let's be mindful that whatever we say here, they're going to go back and this is, what they're going to take back with them. So any comments or?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think it's suits your purpose and better than what is there. So
I would like to challenge you though, if I can make a comment. To me, when you say, we want to demo this and we're trying to make it within the zoning regulations, to me, that's the least of the concerns at this point. We're talking about a very historic space, has a great history to it. When I look at this, I say, the rendering looks very nice, but what would happen if you twisted that building so you do utilize, the foundation of what's currently there? And then off that side, you give it the same frontage that it's always had. Is that something that was considered at all?
There isn't a foundation that's usable.
Well,
within
again,
the building.
because would be in the exact same place again, the foundation could be repaired but if you face it the other direction where the front of what you're so calling the front of the building, if that could go toward
I understand.
the inside of
Turning it so that its gable roof is oriented the way it currently is.
The way it currently is, and it looks somewhat the same from the actual road itself.
We could turn the gable the other way. I thought it looked nicer having a front gable, but I don't disagree with that. But the original building, which was that, does not have a foundation that we can use. That's part of the report. There is no useful foundation here. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
A later addition was this piece back here, which has basement under it, and those were the foundation walls that you're seeing in those photographs that are talking about having cracks. So the foundation images that you see, which are the stacked blocks, kind of wonky, are the ones that are under the original building, just so we understand that. I don't think this building would withstand getting raised, to your comment. I mean, 1x6 floor joists and 1x3 roof rafters. I mean, the walls have like homosode on the insides of them. So I'm not sure I would agree with that concept that it could be safe. Could we build a new building that is this footprint because it's what was there before with a new foundation and make it a new building because we're trying to do something that's using the same space that was there originally? Yes, we could do that. But I don't think it would be saving that building. It would be putting a new building respectfully where the old building was.
And again, I think that's really where I'm going with this, is that the way I read this, and it is very historic, is we really don't want to change the streetscape piece of it. Having the side of the building actually look like what was originally there. So what I'm saying is because you can say the prefab, you know, I think what you said is, I'm trying to write something here. Prefab structures, they're historic in their own right? I mean, they were something new, it was something that was done, you know, and it's 100 years old. So we may not like necessarily, and it was a temporary structure, we may not like necessarily the way it looks, and we could make it look better, right? But yes, giving it that same historic from the road, the side of the building instead of the front with the gable. And I don't know, I'm not an architect, so maybe this is where Barton needs to step in.
The prefab was a really popular thing. I mean, Sears and Roebuck's houses are phenomenal.
Right.
They were built much better than this prefab structure was built. This prefab structure was built as a glorified shed. The Sears homes are built with beautiful floors and chestnut wood finishes and, you know, plaster walls and, you know, roofs that have slate roofs. I mean, they were intended as homes. This building was intended as a structure to let people go into when they were engaging in tennis, in a summertime activity that was not going to be a year-round activity. So I think this prefab home is not the same as every prefab home.
Right.
It's not a prefab home. It's a prefab field club building, because I think this was called a field club originally. But yes, we could respect the fact that it's the side-facing gable rather than front-facing gable to be respectful of the history.
And I would like to correct you. I mean, even some of the more stately houses, they were all built on stones stacked on one another with concrete. And when you worked on them, they collapsed and you rebuilt them and you put them back. So again, it can be done. So I want to correct that piece. But for me, it's more about what this was originally for. It was temporary structure, but also keeping the streetscape that very, you know, simple side, and then whatever you do within that, facing out toward the tennis courts or to the side of that. And again, Martin, please step in, because this is just me up at night thinking about this.
Yeah, I think you mean turning the gable 90 degrees. So its current orientation, right? It faces, the long gable faces the street.
Right, and think less about, I mean, so many times you're really at an advantage right now to put it in the same footprint because it's an existing structure. Now, we have a zoning expert down here at the very end, but you know, for you to tear this down and then try to make it so it fits, so you don't have to go through zoning, it, in my mind, is not the right way to handle this particular structure.
We have to go through zoning anyway. We're an
Okay.
existing non-conforming
Okay.
use, so we're not avoiding zoning by any means. It was merely the fact that we don't think we need the building to be as large, and we could try to improve that situation. And I believe from a zoning point of view that once you tear the structure down, you can't just say, well, this is where it was before, so therefore it's okay. Once you tear a structure down, you are supposed to comply, and you're supposed to present your hardship for why you cannot comply. So, you know, it puts a bit of pressure on the zoning board when we get there to say, well, you know, we want to maintain our 2.7 foot setback because that's what was there before, even though we're tearing the building down. It's not the strongest zoning argument going, but.
But where I'm going with this is the current foundation, which you said is crumbling and is falling apart because it's stones. That's typical of a building of that age. So unless I'm wrong, and Jessica, please jump in.
No,
if that
I'm
was-
sorry, just to clarify with the foundation, I thought that you said there is no foundation.
So if you read the structural report,
Yeah.
it says that there, I don't want to misquote it.
Yeah, it's not a real foundation.
Yeah, it's not a real foundation.
Barton, I might need you to jump in here.
It's just kind of sitting there, so. not.
So it's
Basement
literally
crawl space
setting on
observation.
stone, no,
Sitting on little like column piles.
Okay, so the basement, which is under a later portion of the building. The basement wall, horizontal crack and absence of the perimeter crawl space foundation walls, and absence of perimeter crawl space foundation walls was also very concerning. Perimeter crawl space foundation walls is this, the original building.
okay.
So,
It's built like an outbuilding.
yes, it was
Okay.
built as a temporary. The basement could fail or even collapse if it continues to go unmaintained. It would take substantial amount of work to stabilize the basement, which would consist of new concrete. That's all about the basement. In addition, the perimeter crawl space wall was deteriorated and not clear if there was adequate support of the perimeter walls above. In our professional opinion, it is not economically or structurally feasible to salvage the first floor framing and the existing foundation walls. We recommend total removal and replacement. This coupled with the roof condition, total demolition and replacement of the building. So the photographs in the structural report that show this,
Right, I saw that.
that is, it's not under the original.
Okay.
The original structure foundation is page 11 of 11 is probably the best one to show you
Yeah, okay.
The-
Yeah, I did see that one.
the temporariness of these piers. So I don't think we're going to build on existing foundation. If we try to simulate a similar building to what was there, it would have a new foundation.
So, yes,
May I ask a question?
yes, Meg.
Hi, everybody, I'm Maggie Minutes. This property was, the principals are in the room that own this property. Are you all the principals?
Some of us are.
And you're part of the Maplewood Little Club?
We are.
So the Maplewood Little Club bought the Wyoming Club? And you
Correct. We paid their back taxes and gave them $1,000 or $100.
said $10 on the tax return.
10, was it 10?
I
forgot. It seemed like so much money.
So I'm just curious, when you purchased this property, did you do a home inspection on it?
We looked at it, sure.
Sure. So did you not know that all these issues were happening back in '21 when you bought it?
What's that?
I'm just curious that, did you not know there were these structural issues in 2021 when you purchased the property?
Not to the same extent. We didn't have a structural analysis done, but we did have the oil tank checked to see if there was leakage, et cetera.
But that was it, you didn't bring anybody in to do, I sell real estate for a living, so.
Yeah,
when we-
I build real estate for a living, so I did go in and look at the.
So you knew that these structural, I guess what I'm just trying to ask you, did you know at that point when you purchased the property that there were these structural issues with the property?
We knew, if you don't mind me,
Go ahead.
we knew that, I mean, anybody could walk into that basement, and my immediate thought was, first of all, not allowing my kids in this building. I mean, because we certainly could tell that there were issues. We didn't know what the extent of it was, and the intent at the time when we purchased was we didn't know whether it was going to be a renovation or what the extent of it was going to be. We knew that there were issues and that there were repairs necessary. I think the purchase price reflects that, right? But we did not know the extent until we saw the structural engineer's report, because none of us are structural engineers.
So nobody,
I don't mean to interrupt, but the witnesses are not sworn. I just want to raise that with the attorney. I don't know if you want to swear in the witnesses.
Yes. It's a conceptual review, so do we need to swear them in?
I just bring it up for
Do you swear to tell the truth?
I'm a member of the bar also.
Can't go wrong being sworn.
I'm
So he
happy
doesn't need to be sworn either.
if you'd like, friends.
that was just my question, was since you had purchased it in 2021, that you had to have known the condition of the property when you purchased it. That's all.
So I think we have a couple more maybe now questions from,
I think you have an opportunity here with this piece of property, because it does date back 100 years, right? And we don't know when it was constructed, which is kind of interesting. And I don't know if you worked with the Historical Society, what they have on file with the property, that maybe there's some information there that you could draw inspiration from in terms of what this may turn into. I'd like to see if it's possible to retain elements of the existing architecture in this high vaulted ceiling with exposed rafters, and it's kind of a unique aspect of it. But it'd be good to preserve something, maybe not the actual architecture, but an homage to that architecture that may be present in there. But I think you have an opportunity with the data of a club that goes back 100 years ago. Someone paid for the purchase of this building, the structure. And I don't know what I'll admit, I'm not familiar with the Wyoming Club and how active you are, or maybe it isn't. I don't know. I mean, there's obviously been a change in ownership, but I would hope there'd be some historical records to its history that maybe can be that inspiration to find something that gives you a date when this was built, or gives you something that says, this is what we wanted to do. Maybe they didn't do what they wanted to do, and they went for the prefab because it was a better price. I mean, I don't know. I just think there's some opportunities there to look into. That's just my perspective as a historian. So.
Do we have any other comments? I don't hear an objection here of, what you're trying to accomplish. I think what we're asking you is to keep in mind what this represented for the community, how it looked from a streetscape, for me anyway, and I don't know if fellow commissioners feel the same way, but I think it can be just as unique and beautiful as what you're showing here, but also then adding some of those elements that were there.
Yeah, I mean, I think to say this is not sort of a normal Wyoming streetscape in that you have, a corner house with the garage next door to it. This is a very huge lot. Then there's that, historic Tudor that she came in with it, that's very historic. And then a bunch of buildings that are very representative of the historic district. And then across the street is Wyoming Presbyterian Church and their open area. So I wouldn't say that this is necessarily representative of a Wyoming streetscape that you have everywhere else, right? Because next to this is an enormous lot, right? So it was a small building on an enormous lot where the tennis courts are. So I think that part of it, I'm not sure that you're maintaining a streetscape that we would with another house that you would want to be in the same plane as everything else. So I think that's why it is very unique. So I think keeping it, the same scale is appropriate because, it was historically an open area. But I don't know that, to me, that we're really looking at it as a streetscape issue.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think though, what you just said, the streetscape is very different.
Yeah.
And to have a front facing, then you look like, again, a house that's facing forward, where this gives it that unique piece, and that's what that property has been since 1925. Well, I mean, even before the house, though.
Property, yeah.
1911 or something like that is when. So keeping that in mind is that I agree with Zach, is there's a really unique opportunity here to, and I'm sorry, Jessica and Zoni, but just to kind of ignore that for a minute.
Right in front of me?
Because I do think this commission could support going and writing to the zoning commission about how important this structure is historically, by Barton's report even, or the report that we received, and it has a lot of history. So, we want to be able to support it too. And I think, unless I'm wrong, Barton, and again, anytime you want to chime in here and correct me.
No, I think, if everyone thinks it's too far gone, the structure itself, then I think the next step is orientation on the site to the new building.
And what I hear also orientation, but also some of the elements that the current or the current structure has, and that is the vaulted ceiling and the, you know, some of the other things that this structure, there are photographs, there's history. We only have a portion. There, in the Historic Society, I'm sure you'll see additional maybe photographs, or somebody has a postcard that has the inside of this building in it.
How many events were held there?
Yeah, how many
Years.
events were held?
Actually, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, if you're making it smaller, to be honest, this used to be rented out. They'd rent it out for the day and, you know, people would have birthday parties there and stuff like that. And it was kind of a nice space, especially in the Wyoming area. We don't really have, and so it was, and I do believe they stopped renting it out at one point because of the structural issues before the pandemic. Because I think we tried to rent it and they said they weren't renting it out anymore. But it was a nice space. So I do think if you can keep that open space, and again, it was very much a community building in the beginning and even through before it was sold, so.
We, you know, I didn't get into too much detail, but we certainly wanted to keep this activity room, having the vaulted ceiling, having that open air, having all the glass and connecting to the patio. So it could be used for different functions, and, you know, the club has to speak to how they would rent it out or whatever. I can't really go there, but we do intend to have a space that's, you know, a full volume like that. So we will want to pursue that. It is a bit smaller because we're making a smaller building, so I think that's, you know, that's a consideration.
I would just say, speaking to the, you know, from the zoning side, and I can't speak for the entire board, but this is different than someone who's knocking down a house somewhere and trying to build, you know, an enormous house and asking for, you know, variances. There's such a history attached to, you know, the current structure, that I think that that's something that would be absolutely taken into account, when you come before zoning, because either way you're going to have to. And I think especially if we have a report from HPC explaining reasons for, you know, why they need the variances, some of them that they need, that's something that the zoning board would, you know, again, I can't speak for everyone, but, you know, would be kind of amenable to. So I wouldn't get too caught up, just because this is very different than just a residential, you know, application where it's a house and you want to build a McMansion. This is totally different.
I mean, from a building code point of view, we would at least go to 3.1 feet because of fire requirements and wall rating systems and things like that exist in our building code today. So I think we would at least want to comply with that.
So I'd like to clarify too, we commend all of you for, you know, this is going to be beautiful, and taking this on and this project. You know, it's not easy, and sometimes going through historics, you know, we demand a little more. But I think you hear what we're asking for, and so we can support it at the next level. So we normally don't in a conceptual, but certainly anyone who has any comments in the audience, council, can we allow them also to just chime in on it?
Yes, and I would just swear you in.
Okay.
Just for the record.
Yeah, please step up and she'll swear you in, and we want to hear what your comments are too.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you just state your name for the record?
James Weil, Weill. Thank you for having us here tonight. I am a member of the Maplewood Little Club. I was a member of the Wyoming Club for 30 years. I think I was the longest standing member.
You'll get a plaque.
Still stand.
Promise him a plaque.
I've been a resident of the town my whole life, except for some time in the beginning. I live in a designated house in the Wyoming district. I grew up in a house built in 1872. So, and as you know, I'm an architect. I appeared in front of this board numerous times. A lot of you weren't on here at the time. But anyway, I think the most important aspect of this is the presentation of this neighborhood tradition. And, you know, we struggled the last few years of our club, and we really appreciated the Maplewood Club taking this over. And once in the summertime, the springtime when it's operating, every day I come home, I drive by, and I'm so excited to see lessons going on there, people hanging out, and I think it's really important, you know, to preserve this. A number of years ago, I did a presentation to the Historic Society on the history of the club. I don't know, it was about 8 or 10 years ago, and I did as much research as I can, and it was very similar to the report information that Barton had. And I know everyone said, oh, it's a Sears house, and I researched that quite a bit. And, you know, all the beams are supposed to have tags on them, and the same thing we determined it probably wasn't. When we started this process, I was hoping I hope we could save this building. But the more we looked at it, and you go in that basement, it's scary. The walls have been going in like this for years. If you look under the crawl spaces, it's very scary. And I've seen a lot of, you know, similar type things. So, you know, I'm not going to get into the design. You know, Carolyn, I think, is doing a great job. And I just think that preserving the institution and having this here is what's one of the key things. So,
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to mention he needs a plaque. But you also need to recruit him to put up historic pictures in the building. And so anyone who walks in knows the history and some of the pieces. So I just gave you a job.
I think there are pictures of people playing tennis pictures in there, I think.
Yeah, it's all rackets.
Yeah, I like the old rackets in
Yeah.
the picture.
Yeah.
That's good to preserve that.
Is there anyone else who?
Anything to say?
No.
Sales guy never knows.
We don't see him.
And we do appreciate all the feedback and the comments. That was the purpose of tonight, was to understand what the board would be looking for in a concept. And obviously we received that tonight, so we appreciate all that feedback.
Thank you. I would like to mention one more thing, and only from a distance. I've actually never, you know, been on the property itself. But if Barton, if you could just share with us, is there any retaining walls or anything that might have significance that you believe should be rebuilt or?
No, I discussed that with Carolyn as well, and you know, it's not like they're pre-Wyoming Club historic stone walls or anything like that. You know, it's just an old patio, and you know, their new design, I think, will take better advantage of the views and everything anyway.
Great. So again, I'm just going to give the lecture that we are only stewards of these properties, and to me is to put back as much as we possibly can, or at least duplicate what we can of the same feel from all the old photographs. It's really important because we hope this building stands for 200 years, longer than the prefab, you know, the structure. And also, hopefully, we'll keep our fingers crossed, maintained properly, and so it does last for that length of time. So we're really excited for this project. But again, if you could come back with something that we can support, you know, in the next step, that would be really great for us. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
I think that's it, unless anybody has any other comments. So great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Very welcome. So if we can just go ahead and finish the business here. So could I ask everybody, just a minute, could I ask everybody, we're still in session,
I'm sorry.
okay? No, that's okay, just, you can stay, just little lower voices, thank you. So just a few discussion, cleaning house things real quickly. Oh, you're pointing something out to me? Oh, thank you. He's helping me out tonight. I stayed up way too late last night. So as far as the chair's report, I just want to go over what happened with the element of the master plan real quickly. We were postponed. We're still waiting from the task force of the planning board to respond on the changes that we need to make that will be acceptable to the planning board. So we have postponed this. We don't have an exact date yet. And she is out of town, I confirmed that. So what we're trying to do, and it will be posted and noticed, and I really need to make it mandatory that we're all here for that public meeting. Okay, we're just in, showing force here. So when we pop up a few dates, we need your response right away, so we can get as many people in here as possible. Right now, we're asking our professionals the dates that they have available, and then it will be then passed on to us. Yes.
I sent Crystal the old version. It hasn't changed in like 6 or 8 months.
Which I still have, yeah.
So I haven't received any
Right.
revisions, so I don't
You're
know
waiting.
if we're trying to re-present stuff ahead of time so everyone can review these are the changes the planning board wants to make or not.
So you're saying we might have to have another meeting, or can we?
Or just the commissioners would be able to review whatever changes are being proposed. before
And
we have this
respond
meeting.
back.
Right.
Okay, and that can't be done through the minor work review,
No, I'd recommend the whole.
the whole
commission
board? Okay.
sees the revisions, but we don't have the revisions yet. So I don't know what they are.
So what I'm hearing then, clarifying, is as soon as you receive the revisions and you make the revisions, then you send the report out.
And we could post it before commissioners convene to discuss it.
But we would need you guys to review it right away and respond. So please put a date on how long they have to view it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, 2 weeks or something.
And could you make it easier where the changes were made? Because it's
Red line.
quite a long
Yeah.
report.
Right. That's my point.
Okay,
I don't know that yet, though.
Right.
I don't know what the red lines are.
precisely. Okay, so again, when you receive it, we need it back right away. Okay, so we'll put a date on it, just look at it, review it, okay it, so we can get it moving, because we really want to get this done and presented back to the planning board as soon as possible. Okay?
It'll come from Crystal or you?
Yeah, well, whenever either Graham or I get the revisions done, then we'll.
Yeah,
we'll
I'll send it
through
out.
Put it on the website.
Education and outreach, real quickly, Barton, we were talking about this, I want you to speak on behalf of the awards. There was a small subcommittee, but we lost a couple of those people.
We've lost those members, so if there's a couple volunteers, we have some award submissions, and the next time, we're together, or sometime when people can all be in person, we'd like to give out some awards. So I have all the submissions, I just need a subcommittee.
A subcommittee. So if I could get volunteers this evening, and it's already been done, the work's already been done, and I think there are 5 applicants,
5 or 6.
5 or
Have to
6
review it.
applicants.
Still work to review.
So what's the role of the committee members?
You're just gonna review the PDFs that the 5 or 6 submitted and tell me, which ones we want to do certificates and invite to a meeting, and
I'll be part of that board.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
What do they win? Just the
I was gonna say, are we going to give them a plaque to put on the house, or what's
Printout.
the?
Color.
just
Color
a
print.
printed certificate that they can frame if they'd like.
We can
We used to invite the newspaper, but I don't know that we can do that anymore.
Well, certainly we can frame it for them, but that's something that we need to talk about, because I think we need to start doing a little more for
Yeah.
people that have really gone out of their way to support, and especially, these historic houses. And there's different categories, right, on design.
We could even nominate our own as well. Like if you think there's, hey, somebody deserves an award, like, we've given Lynn Ranieri awards and, things like that over time, so.
So an individual. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we've done this since way before COVID though, yeah, so.
Can somebody help, Robert here? Karen will do it. Okay,
Karen and Robert.
okay, Karen and Robert. You guys are gonna all be
Yeah.
talking. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's see here. As you know, I spoke to Elizabeth and her schedule's really busy right now, so she's no longer working with us on the minor work review. David Barton, our new member, stepped in, which is, great. We also, Bruce was once wanting to be, I know. And what ended up happening was COVID. So if you still are interested, we would love to have.
Boots in the snow. So
You and I both. So maybe now we also can add Bruce to that if you're still
We'll have more time.
interested.
Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you. And Elizabeth, thank you for how many years of, it's been quite a few, and we appreciate the service that you did give. And certainly we're here when you want to come back too, okay?
And my kids go to college.
I don't know, it doesn't get any easier. So if there are any additional discussion items or questions that anybody has at this time? Oh, and I'd also, real quickly, I put Zach in the beginning, then I threw him in. Zach represented us at the planning board meeting of property 285 Old Short Hills Road. It was for that minor subdivision. First of all, thank you, Zach. He read Barton's report. Barton was unable to attend. We tried to present something, but it officially it's going to be subdivided and torn down. Here's one of these properties where it's big enough to subdivide. It's not, we don't have it on the element of the master plan, or, we have quite a few of those properties. Now, Mayor Miggins also gave us, a chance to take a look at those properties again. So we're putting a list together right now on some of those larger properties that could be in jeopardy and see what the history is on those properties before this happens again. Again, we're always behind. So anything that pops up, we're trying to put forward with all the other things that we currently have Barton doing for us. So
My own little bug, just because I'm in the area, did the Robin Hood house, did it get saved? We get no signs anymore.
It'll be fine.
It got, you mean the Nottingham
Yeah.
house just was before the zoning board?
Okay.
And it is a architect from town that's buying it.
Is it Bayer?
Do some renovations. Interestingly, I was actually surprised that no one was at the meeting from HPC. But he did say that he ran it by, that he talked.
okay.
So this is exactly why we need to do the new master plan element, because
But
it's
there's-
not listed in 1991, but it is listed in our new one.
Interesting, yeah. So when we tried to comment on it and comment on the aesthetics, it was a little challenging because the truth is, we don't have any aesthetic, oversight.
I could go tell you, because I saw it.
And it's not a protected house. So the good news is it's not being torn down. The other news is that there's gonna be some interesting additions, I guess you could say.
So
to
again,
it.
Barton stressed how important it is that we, get this process moving.
Yeah.
And get this locked in, and then that way we can go to the township and say, okay, we need to do a new district, and that was a targeted district.
It should be.
To designate. So again, we can't make up 40+ years of doing nothing in a few short years, but we're trying to put forth things as quickly as we possibly can, but this is happening. So again, your attention is really important too, okay, or feedback.
Well, that's
All
why at the meeting I stressed it's advisory that we here are presenting this information, and they can take it under consideration and do what they want with it. But that's about all we can do at this point, even with this new master plan.
Right.
For those that are outside districts, outside of landmark properties, but it's interesting to hear what you said about the building that had been kind of passed through us, but maybe hadn't, so that's okay. But, you know, it'd be nice to have advised them on some ideas as to how that could be retained or things like that. And we talked about retaining the historic wall in the back of 285.
Right,
Was, yeah,
right.
so
And
that
they
will be,
agreed to that,
yeah.
yeah.
and we, as we pushed a few things, they said, okay, we're done with the stipulations that you want to put on this.
Right.
So I think they had reached, yeah, there's a historic wall in the back.
But 285 doesn't own it, it's on the other person's property.
Some of it is and some of it isn't, so.
So they couldn't tear it down.
But also, we had them commit to an actual architectural style
style,
for the
yeah.
two houses.
Yeah.
Now, this is what's happening. We can ask, but we have no legal recourse. So again, if they commit to us in that meeting by us pushing them, that's great. Reality is, and I'm learning every day, how much, unless it's designated, we really don't have legal pressure or, you know, we have nothing there. We have no substance. We can only recommend and hope that the applicant or the architect listens to us, but we can't force them to do so. Okay? So again, the importance of the element of the master plan so we can get moving on designations. Okay? That's great. So let's, I don't think there's anything else. No? So I move to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't hear any. This meeting is adjourned. Drive safely. Thank you, guys.
Good job.
I appreciate it.
See you tomorrow.
Yes.
8:30.
If I get up.